Good morning. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. I got to talk about the aftermath of the Buffalo shooting, but the aftermath is what I'm looking at and what I'm responding to, because as I expected, a lot of people have some takes that are like, what are you talking about? So I see a lot more people saying, oh yes, we need an anti-black hate crime bill. And I knew the response to this would be some foolishness. I expected that all coming from, just Democratic politicians and Democratic shills. But there's a bunch of people who don't fit neatly into that category. But there's a bunch of people who don't fit neatly into that category who are pushing that narrative. So this is the reaction that I was talking about when people are like, oh, we just need to do something, and they don't actually have concrete policy ideas that they're proposing. They want to be able to just say, oh, yes, we've done something, we're doing something, we're pushing for something, and they don't know what they're pushing for. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a lot of people that don't have policy ideas. And actually saw a couple of persons that have some knowledge of policy that are going with this anti-black hate crime bill. It's like, what does that accomplish? Because even assuming if that it's all across the board and it's just actually creating some legislation and some penalties for somebody that commits anti-black hate crimes, that doesn't save people's lives. That doesn't stop people from getting murdered. That's a purely reactionary solution. It's not even a solution. It's a purely reactionary response. Oh, well, we're going to make it extra bad for you if you commit anti-black hate crime laws. What? That doesn't benefit black people. But what's worse is a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, well look, the Asians got the anti-Asian hate crime bill. Number one, in the anti-Asian hate crime bill, it starts off with talking about, anti-Asian violence and increasing anti-Asian violence. But then a lot of the other language inside the bill is non-specific to Asians. So the intro, that's what people don't realize, because you're not actually reading the legislation. But what's worse is not just that, it's purely cosmetic and kind of like the Emmett Till bill. It's worse than that, because what the anti-Asian hate crime bill actually did was increase funding to the police. That's what the bill did. And so when you're talking about an anti-black hate crime bill, what you're actually talking about is more funding to the police. Now, if you know what you know about these white supremacist organizations, these anti-black organizations, they have infiltrated law enforcement at various levels. They've infiltrated military, they've infiltrated government, they've infiltrated police departments, they've infiltrated corrections departments, they've infiltrated federal law enforcement agencies. Giving the police, giving the government more power, more money, more resources isn't going to solve our problem. We need more power. We need more resources. In New York, you know what we need? We need guns. Right now, the Supreme Court has a case in front of it concerning relaxing the restrictions on the ability of New Yorkers to carry guns. That's one of the things we need to be focused on. That's one of the things we need to be pushing on. And I say one of the things because it's not all. Because in addition to addressing this at a state level, we need to address New York City. Because what a lot of people don't realize is something that this kid said. He said he looked up the zip code and saw that this was heavily populated by black people. So I looked up that area of Buffalo, and it's like 80-something%. Do you know how many areas in New York City, how many zip codes in New York City are well above 90% black? Here in New York City, we need to get this may provide permit system. That needs to end. Black people need to be able to arm and protect ourselves. That's the only starting point. That's the only starting point. Then there's a matter of, well, there are a lot of black people that have records and can't own firearms. That's the next point. We need to be fighting for restoration of our rights. Point blank, period. Because in many cases, the law has been used to disarm us. We cannot accept that, because you may say, oh, well, we don't, guess what? Criminals have guns. And the narrative is, oh, yes, well, we don't want more subway shootings like Frank James, allegedly. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Number one, beyond Frank James, there's been subway shootings. There have been subway robberies at gunpoint. And I'm actually going to put, show these articles, slice them into this video, because this is what they're not talking about. Criminals will keep their guns. Point blank, like no law is going to stop criminals from having their guns. We need to relax the law so that law-abiding citizens can protect themselves. That's the only solution. So if you look at, because there's been, like, I saw somebody writing an article where they was defending the restrictive New York State gun laws, saying, oh, well, we don't want people with guns in the subway. And one of the arguments made at oral arguments was, well, people have guns in the subway. Criminals have guns in the subway. And they're like, oh, no, that wasn't true. I think it was Alito. In fact, I think Alito made that point. And the person writing the article says, oh, well, nobody bothered to correct him. No, he's absolutely right. And I can show you case laws, not just case laws, but articles about guns, people that were committing crimes in the subways with guns. So clearly, these are not this is before the Supreme Court has shot down New York State's restrictive gun law. This is before that. So let's stop the nonsense. Criminals will keep their guns. Law-abiding citizens need to be able to get their guns. And then people who have passed need to be given the opportunity to restore their rights. It's not an automatic restoration. Like there can be a case, like for instance, what a lot of people don't know, there's actually a law on the books that allows people who have disabilities to own firearms, legal disabilities to own firearms. There's a legislation where they can actually apply to restore their gun rights. The problem is the federal government has not funded that law for decades. For decades. 925, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 925C. This is one of the focuses we need to be focused on. So one, we need guns. We need to get out there and own guns where we're legally allowed to. We need to fight legislation that's not allowing black people to own guns, especially here in New York State. We need to fight to have the ability to restore people to own firearms. These are all things we need to do. Things that actually matter more than some cosmetic hate crimes. What does that do? It does nothing. It does nothing but make people feel good, and then they can say, see, yeah, I push for that. You push for what? The cops to get more money? Because that's what the anti-Asian hate crime bill did. So thanks for this video. Thanks for checking out this video. That's why it's important to actually have a plan. That's why it's important to have an agenda as opposed to just talking, because there's a lot of people out here that are just talking and they don't know what they're talking about. Thanks for checking this out. As always, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. And if you disagree with anything I said, feel free to hit the thumbs down. Tell me why in the comment section. Let's get to work.